it's chaos when you let one person in a lower court be the veto, literally give them the veto power of a president on policy that affects the entire nation. That's insane. That was never an intention of the founding fathers.
Nowhere in the Constitution does it grant the judiciary the power to issue universal decrees as to how the country is run. I mean, and it's a particularly egregious with Donald Trump's ban on transgender servicemen and women in the military. This is a DSM-5 mental disorder. That is the academic phrase. I'm not trying to disrespect anybody. YouTube, calm down. Rumbles, chill. But there are over 40 different categories that will get you disqualified or disqualify from enlistment. And Trump just added another one to it, only for exhibiting symptoms. And a lower court district judge said, no, you must bring in anyone who enlists because, quote, all means all. This meant at least temporarily, schizophrenic, bipolar individuals are now entitled to enlist in the military, and Trump can't say no. He's the commander-in-chief. It's an absurdity that you basically have in these universal injunctions rule by decree of the judiciary. They can literally just, we hereby say the government can no longer arrest people for smoking pot and just decree that marijuana is not illegal anymore. That's an insanity. So I don't know if they're, according to NPR, it looks like even the conservatives weren't convinced by the Solicitor General's arguments, but I guess we'll see. The other context, of course, is birthright citizenship. I'm curious what you guys think. Do you believe that people should be granted automatic citizenship just for being born here?
No, I don't think the Constitution says that. I think it's pretty clear that that the president has and Congress have the authority over this topic to define it and to determine, naturalization. I don't think, and nowhere in there does it say that that anybody born here has U.S. citizenship.
Well, the 14th Amendment says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside.
That's the letter of the law, not the spirit of the law. And it definitely wasn't intended to mean anyone who flies over the border at the last minute while crowning is about to give birth to a U.S. citizen. That is not the way it was intended at all.
Indeed, the intention of the 14th Amendment was to say, hey, guys, stop the Civil War stuff. It's over. We win. Now, how do we remedy this slavery thing? I got it. If you were born here,
Right.
You're a citizen. We good? Okay, now moving forward, and then 40 years later, somebody was like, yeah, but it says if you're born here, you're a citizen. And then they were like, no, that meant then. That meant like after the war. And they're like, nah, we think it means forever.
Well,
and then a judge said yes.
We have a unique problem now that they didn't have back then, and that is that we have thousands and thousands of people streaming over the border, as you said, pregnant, to have babies here, to anchor themselves and their families in the United States. And a lot of these people are not, they're not amalgamating with the culture.
Right.
They have their own cultures, and they maintain, in some sense, they maintain their patriotism and allegiance to the countries that they come from. This is a unique problem that we have. This isn't a problem that goes back to the Civil War. So I think it needs a new solution.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges, we constantly hear from liberals arguments about how the founding fathers didn't understand the technological advancements that would alter the meaning of the Constitution. And I don't completely disagree with that. I just don't think it voids any of the initial Bill of Rights of the Constitution. That being said, I do think it's fair to say, here's a question for you guys. You're a member of Congress. Are you a two-way guy, you'd say?
Yes.
Do you think people should be allowed to have nuclear weapons? Tough one, right?
I would say up everything up into nuclear weapons.
What about biological weapons?
No.
See, I agree, but my view is procedurally we should amend the Constitution. We have to say that
Because it's clear, like whatever, to me, the way the Second Amendment is written, it's that if the military is going to have this, then the citizens should have it too.
Indeed. And back then, in the late 1700s, when they were fighting a war, and then I think it was, 1789 when they drafted this, people had cannons, artillery. They had warships, private warships. And even to this day, private companies make nuclear weapons for the government. They just regulate and control how it's done. So I do think we want to protect the basic right of the people to keep and bear arms, but basically everybody. I know not literally everybody, but most people would be like, we don't think random people should have biological weapons, but it's a weapon. It's used by governments. Yeah, but we're talking about the apocalypse now. The founding fathers couldn't have perceived of weaponized smallpox. Well, actually. So, right.
Maybe now that you mentioned that, their thoughts on bioweapons may be different than what we're talking about
But my
here.
point
But
is, in bringing that up, is they didn't perceive of it that way, of like weaponizing viruses to target genetics and things like that.
Sure.
So anyway, my point is this. Airplanes, it was a lot easier back in the day. If somebody came into your town and wasn't from there, they'd just be like, "Wait, you're not a citizen, get out of here." Now what happens is someone flies here. Guy at the hospital doesn't know who this person is.
That's right. And you have to take them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then this Chinese woman comes in and she's like, I'm pregnant. And they're like, we don't know if they're a citizen or not. And then they give birth. And then this is okay. Whatever it is your arguments are, whatever you want to think, I'm going to tell you exactly why we have to get rid of birthright citizenship. Okay, it shouldn't exist. Iran is a great adversary of ours. We don't like them. They're crazy. They're going to build a nuclear weapon. We can't have any of that. What happens if an Iranian couple travels to the U.S. by whatever means they can, because they do, and gives birth to a child in America, and then 3 months later flies back to Iran through Turkey or something, right? Lives 20 years, let's say 20 years in Iran, and that child grows up as a staunch Islamist and supporter of Iran and their desires and their goals, but as an American passport.
This is very similar to the reality of Hassan Piker.
And then the Iranian 20-year-old who barely speaks English moves to the United States, an American citizen, born in America, allegiant to Iran, and then goes to university, learns a language, and then runs for president. 15 years later, young 35-year-old, charismatic, says, trust me, I should be president. Everyone's like, you grew up in Iran, an adversary of this nation. Doesn't matter. American citizen. I mean, that's an absurdity. The founding fathers would say, no. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.